All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today, and happy Everglades Day. Welcome to the John Marshall Everglades Symposium, the fourth and final installment of this series. My name is Bianca Cassouto, and I am the Education Program Manager at the Everglades Foundation. We are excited to have all of you joining us today in person and virtually. Thank you for participating in today's event with a special focus on education and the environment. Named in honor of the late great environmentalist John Marshall, our symposium extends his legacy by bringing together experts who can speak to the importance of restoring and protecting the important Everglades ecosystem. We would like to extend a special thank you to John's wife, a member of our foundation board, Nancy Marshall, who is participating in today's event virtually. Thank you for being here today with us, Nancy. I would also like to thank our sponsor, Glenmede, for supporting the 2022 John Marshall Everglades Symposium Speaker Series. Today is April 7th, also known as Everglades Day. Everglades Day is designated in honor of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, a journalist, author, and conservationist. Her passion for protecting the Everglades included educating millions of people about the importance and value of the Everglades ecosystem. Our education program works to ignite that passion in our teachers, students, and the school's community. So, why is Everglades education critical to our state? Education is at the heart of a community's engagement in environmental appreciation and sustainability. And the Everglades are the foundation of our local environment. Broward has nearly 2 million residents living within the county. Its school system is the 6th largest in the entire country and is one of the top 3 programs that we work with. In fact, Broward County Public Schools is one of the first school districts we partnered with back in 2014, when the Everglades Education Program was established. We are proud of the nearly 540 teachers we've engaged with and the 6 designated Everglades champion schools we have in Broward County. We look forward to expanding Everglades education in Broward and across the state with the support from our teachers, school district representatives, and community partners. To learn more about the Everglades Foundation, for those of you attending in person, you can scan a QR code to sign up for the newsletter. For those of you attending virtually, please visit evergladesfoundation.org. To learn more about the Museum of Discovery and Science, who is so generously hosting us today, visit mods.org. And to learn more about our Everglades education program, you can visit evergladesliteracy.org. Now, to begin our panel, I will introduce our panelists. We are joined today by Joe Cox, who has served as the president and CEO of the Museum of Discovery and Science in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, since February 2018. Accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, the museum connects 450,000 visitors to inspire science annually. Prior to his current position, he has worked in the museum field for over 20 years. He has a bachelor's degree in environmental science from St. Mary's University in London, with a focus on environmental law and paleoquaternary biogeography, and he completed his master's in museum studies from the University of Leicester. He is also the past chair of the Florida Association of Museums Foundations and currently serves on the national board of the Association of Children's Museums. Thank you, Joe, for being here. We are also joined by Jennifer Diaz, who is the Vice President of Education at the Everglades Foundation. Prior to joining the Everglades Foundation, she taught mathematics and science to elementary and middle school students for more than 15 years in Miami-Dade County and has extensive experience as a science coach and science curriculum development. In addition to the classroom, Jennifer served as a science leader, science club organizer, and team leader of the Southeastern Consortium for Minorities in Engineering. She also served as Miami-Dade County Public Schools Director of 2 grants, the University of Florida STEM Tips Teacher Induction Program funded by the Department of Education, and the University of Miami's Promoting Science Among English Language Learners funded by the National Science Foundation. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here today. And finally, we have Annmargareth Marousky, who is a computer science instructional specialist for Broward County Public Schools, a Florida Atlantic University alumna, a national board certified teacher with 20 years of teaching experience, and a code.org district facilitator. Prior to her current position, Annmargareth has worked in the private, charter, and public educational system in various positions. She has been a STEM teacher, science coach, 5th through 8th grade classroom teacher, and an active member of leadership teams. She has experience writing curriculum for Broward County Public Schools, scienceforus.com, and for other National Science County Public Schools, other National Science Foundation grants, as well as providing a number of professional development trainings for teachers in elementary education, STEM, and blended technology. Thank you, Annmargareth, and thank you again to all of our panelists for participating today. We're looking forward to a great discussion about the environment and education. We will be hosting a Q&A panel at the end of our session here. For those of you who are attending virtually, please make sure to add your questions in the chat and I will receive them and make sure to ask our panelists what's on your mind. So, with that, let's go ahead and get started. The first question is going to be directed to Jennifer. Can you tell us a little bit about how and why the Everglades is so important to this area in Florida?
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I gotta get closer. Okay. Good morning. Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's the lifeblood of South Florida, and from Orlando all the way down the Florida Bay, it's where we get our water supply from. And so restoration is critically important for all of our state, particularly South Florida and the Biscayne Aquifer, in which we get our fresh, clean water.
Great, thank you. Joe, this question's for you. Can you tell us a little bit how the museum works to expand and engage not only Everglades education, but environmental education and sustainability in the long term and comprehensively?
Thank you. You know, the museum has been around since 1977. And when the museum was founded, just down the street where the History Museum is today, environmental education was one of our very first core pillars. We were started as a children's museum with a big focus on environmental education. We went through in 2019 a strategic plan looking at the next 5 years as to where the museum was going to go. And in January 2020, we rolled out our new strategic plan, clear vision as to where we were going. No, didn't have the pandemic 2 months into the plan, but what we did have was a renewed focus on environmental sustainability as one of our core pillars. And so we have really been putting a lot of focus on environmental sustainability and environmental sustainability education. We've hired our first environmental sustainability manager and really building that team so that we can put a bigger focus on that. But we can't do it without our partners. And so it's so exciting to be sitting here today with the Everglades Foundation and Broward County Public Schools, who we consider two of our closest partners in having an impact. This is too big a challenge for us to each tackle alone. And so we really see ourselves, and what we're going to create is a hub for resiliency education, where we'll bring and share all of the voices of the community to get this important message across. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Annmargareth, can you tell us a little bit about what STEM education is and how Broward County is leading the way on that?
Sure. So everyone knows that STEM means science, technology, engineering, and math. But in Broward County Public Schools, it is so much more than that. It is the ability to teach children in a hands-on manner in any curriculum we provide. So whether a teacher is instructing in the core curriculum of math or reading or science, or she's instructing robotics, or she or he is instructing computer science. STEM is a part of that, because in Broward County, we see it as a way to have computational thinking, as a way to have engineering design, which is to say it increases the critical thinking of students so that they can engage more confidently in any topic, in any discussion. We jokingly say, you know, back in the 50s, it was about creating a civic-minded individual who could interact with the community. Now it's about creating a student who can think, who can critically look at any situation and come up with answers to problems. They are the future. They can learn to create those solutions if they have the ability to meet those current four C's, including collaboration and critical thinking and continuing their own education and finding their own path. STEM is also a way for them to see that what they do doesn't just impact them for a grade, but it impacts their local community and it impacts global community because we have them focused on the United Nations 17 Sustainable Goals. And that's how we make sure that our students who are doing STEM are applying it to every area, not just a single grade in the classroom.
Great. This panel is wonderful because we have representation from a nonprofit, a museum, and a school district. So it really puts that focus on partnerships. So Jen, could you elaborate a little bit more about why community partnerships are so important? Even though we all work for different missions, we have so much in common and have a goal in mind as well.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Our partnerships are critical to building our capacity, particularly our school districts, as we really mobilize and figure out how do we bring Everglades and Everglades literacy and environmental understanding to every single classroom in this entire state. And that's 67 counties. And so to pull that lift, the district plays an incredible role in that. And so understanding what our school districts are required to do every year and understanding how environmental education plays a role within that every school year is really important to getting environmental education in the classroom. I learned very quickly by working at the Everglades Foundation and going to classrooms from Key Largo to Pensacola that there is a classroom everywhere. Your natural world and your environment are opened every single day. And so walking into those classrooms and seeing them outside, whether they're learning in the classroom or outside the classroom, environmental education is the way that kids become engaged. It is just so easy. And when you're talking about plants and animals and alligator holes, they're so excited. And so while we know it's really hard to get everybody outside the classroom, right, in the environment, into our Everglades and natural areas, families can do a lot of work in that area, but museums play a critical role into helping introduce this information and technologies and environmental education as well. And so it's like this perfect circle of people who help us to meet all areas of education, right? From teachers to students, to families, to community members, and right back to our school sites.
That's a perfect segue. So Joe, I'd like you to elaborate a little bit about your perspective on a museum partnering with a nonprofit and other organizations to further your messaging and environmental education here at MODS.
You know, one of the things the museum really has focused on in our entirety is being part of the community. And so however that happens, you know, we are out in the community with our new STEM-mobiles. One of the things that we created during the pandemic was our STEM-mobile, which is a mobile outreach van designed to go out when people couldn't come to us, we could go out to them. It's been so incredibly popular, and Everglades Engineers is one of our programs that we do on the STEM-mobile. It's been so incredibly popular. In year one, we saw 50,000 people out in the community, and 83% of those programs were delivered at no cost to the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, libraries, Title I schools. And that was thanks to our partnerships with Everglades Foundation and others who were able to support taking that out to the community. It was so popular, we now have 2 STEM-mobiles, and we recognize that we're going to be focusing the second one almost entirely on early learning. Early learning is so critical in getting children excited at the earliest of early ages. We're talking under 5s. So for us, what we deliver doesn't happen unless we have a place to go. We partner with Broward County Public Schools on a number of ways, including the Youth Climate Summit. So April 20th, we're hosting the Youth Climate Summit here at the museum for those students who are just really excited and passionate. Because one of our goals as a science museum is to create this workforce for jobs that in some cases may not even exist yet. Here in South Florida, resiliency is going to be a huge industry. We have an opportunity to make Broward County the most resilient county possible. But to do that, we need students coming out of STEM careers, coming into STEM careers and creating jobs that don't even exist yet. So we're part of that pipeline, and we couldn't do it without our partners.
Very good. Thank you. Annmargareth, I'd like to ask you some more questions from a school district perspective. So I think the average person thinks that the school district is able to manage everything, right? And is responsible for making sure that every student has a good quality education. And of course they are, but can you talk a little bit about the importance of working with nonprofits and how that helps a school district in the long term?
So when I saw this question, it makes me smile. The perfect world would be that BCPS could handle all the needs of every student, giving them a individualized learning plan based on their passions. And if those passions changes, we can shift right away. The reality is that's not possible. So our work with our non-for-profit organizations, these partnerships are key. What we offer them in the scope of things seems kind of limited, right? So what do we offer our partners? We offer them accessibility, right? They can meet the families, they can be part of the school communities. They have an entrance way. We offer them understanding of our curriculum, understanding of our goals as a district. We offer them entry into the classrooms and our knowledge. We offer them access and knowledge. That's great. They have that. What they offer us is so much more. They offer curriculum and programs that we may not be able to have in our schools because cost is a factor, time is a factor. They offer our teachers opportunities to get really high-level knowledge, enriching their curriculum. So as a teacher, when I was teaching science in the classroom, I went to Everglades Literacy in 2014 because I was teaching a unit on ecosystems and adaptations and animals. And I'm in my classroom, I'm showing pictures, I'm trying to do hands-on, but there is nothing like having them give us the opportunity to go into place-based learning. Being in another environment is so important. So our non-for-profits offer us that opportunity. They also have funding to make these things feasible that we don't have as a classroom teacher. So they provide funding, they gather those funding sources, they make it exciting. And as you know, anybody who comes to you and says, I have a lot of knowledge to give you is great. When they come from the outside, everybody listens. Oh, they have the knowledge. They really know that. I'm going to go to the Museum of Science because that's science and they have tons of knowledge about science. I have the same knowledge about science, but I'm in the classroom every day. So that kind of specialized, excited teacher coming in as a guest and allowing those students to enjoy that moment, allowing them to go to that place, and then seeing the applications, because that's the other thing our nonprofits do. They help us show our students how what you're learning today can empower you for what you want to do tomorrow. It's not about getting the grade. And it sounds silly because we're a school, we want them to get a grade. But it's about learning beyond that and personalizing that and putting them in contact so that our students know I can go to the museum and learn more about that art exhibit that's out front and maybe one day become a doctor or a nurse or something else in the field. I'm going to piggyback off something that Joe just said. It's also about identifying those things that we don't even know that exist yet. So as a teacher, I can prepare students to read and do math and do some critical thinking, but I don't know what jobs are available. So our nonprofits are in the know. They have their finger on the pulse of what's up and coming and can help me make those decisions in the classroom. So I honestly feel that our partnerships are much stronger and our curriculum is much better when we are able to work with our partners.
I love that you brought up career connections because our program really believes in educating the next generation so that as they get older, they are prepared to tackle environmental issues and Everglades restoration in particular.
And I'm just going to expand on that because it's not just about career. It's also about understanding who you are in our environment. You are a Florida resident. As a student, you need to know what that means. Why is this Everglades so unique? And if you start learning it, I can't tell you how many times we giggled over kids going home and saying to their parents, you can't do that. You're gonna hurt the Everglades. And that's only because we have a partnership where they've learned it, I've taught it, they've taught it, and now it means something. So hopefully those students, as they continue to be Florida residents, will help improve the environment that we're living in because they'll have it in the back of their head.
Can you elaborate a little bit more how STEM learning in the classroom can connect a student to being out in nature as well?
Yeah, so one of the big things about STEM is to be able to use the science as well as the technology. I'm sure you've been out somewhere in public and seeing a young person walking and like run into a pillar because they're on their phone. In our own house, I will hand my phone to my niece who's 5 and say, can you fix that for me? Because they're what we call technology natives, right? They grew up with the technology, and so they're able to manipulate it easily. What they're not is technology creators. And so the STEM component is to show them how to take their understanding and nativeness about technology and use it to create something, to solve a problem, for example, with our climate action, with that you were speaking of, the Youth Climate Summit that's going to be held here in person. Those kids are coming because they've created an action plan. They have learned something about the climate. They have decided that there is something in their local community that could have a global impact that they want to address, and they are addressing it. They're using the science, the mathematical data analysis, data collection. They're using the engineering idea of design and critical thinking, not necessarily building something. And they're using the scientific background knowledge, the scientific method to create this action plan of what they would do if given the opportunity to solve a problem that's impacting our environment. Whether it's climate change or sea level rise, especially in Florida, they're getting that opportunity. It's all because of that STEM thinking. Way back in the day when I first started education, it used to be called whole language. But I don't know if anybody knew what whole language. You see everything about teddy bears in a classroom. We did math with teddy bears, and we did reading with teddy bears, and we wrote about teddy bears. That's not what STEM is. STEM is taking that knowledge, doing something with it, applying it critically, and solving, whether it's a simple problem or a complex one. And I think that's where we get with our partnerships with the Everglades, with the museum, is that idea that we can solve these problems, and we empower our students to solve them. We empower them to ask questions. We empower them to be the solution. And that's key for
Great.
ours.
Wonderful. Would anyone like to elaborate on that point?
For hours.
Joe, can you move your mic up a little bit?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Jen too.
You know, one of the things that builds on that, and again, another partnership with the Everglades Foundation and Broward County Public Schools, when we started our environmental sustainability initiative in earnest and brought on Lance, our incredible environmental sustainability manager, one of the first things we did was start a high school internship. And so we reached out to the Broward County Public Schools, which schools would be the best fits for this, which students would be the best. And a couple of weeks, we filled 30 slots. And this is a high school internship where they spend the summer with us and then the fall with us, really absorbing everything there is to know about the Everglades and then turning it back and becoming interpreters as part of the museum team. In year 2, we're expanding this position, and we're going to bring on another member of the environmental sustainability team. But most importantly, we're growing the internship to 50 paid internships for high schoolers. So any high schoolers or parents of high schoolers definitely reach out. But 50 paid internships, and they're paid because we wanted to ensure that we have equity in the program, so that a student who may be having a job, supporting their family, working somewhere part-time, could actually take this paid internship and do that instead. So equity is really important. 50 interns. And so we're working with FAU to really study this and think about what are the skills that they need to become resiliency professionals. If you sit down and ask the local chief resiliency officers, where did you get your resiliency degree? There is no resiliency degree. There's no environmental sustainability master's program. They've all cobbled it together. So let's help create a pathway so our students here in Broward, here in Florida, can help be part of that workforce that we're going to need. Because as Annmargareth said, sea level rise is a huge issue, and we need to be the most resilient county in the country to prepare to live with the impacts of climate change.
Go ahead, Jen.
Of course, I will. I'm humbled to see, as we sit on this panel, the amount of work that's happening in environmental education today. It's huge. And our teachers and our students will reap the benefits for many years to come. And I say that because we talk about civic action. And while in our elementary level, we really focus on learning about the environment, what is just so really cool about where we live and why should we love Florida and its environment so much? And how do we protect it into perpetuity, right? But at that middle and high school level, it's about taking that understanding, love, and knowledge and learning how to act on it, right? So we're starting to see these stories, right? These high school students, but these middle school students as well, start to think critically about, yes, we can solve these problems, even if it's in our place, our backyard, our schoolyards, right? And so we have kids coming out there. We have a young man that has millions of followers on TikTok. He's just talking about the Everglades. That would have never happened before, right? We have a young man, I think it was in Broward County, who started pulling all the invasives out of his neighborhood because he knew that, no, we don't want these invasives in this neighborhood. And I am not encouraging this, but he started a bonfire and he burnt all these non-native plants, right? Yes, the police were called but his teacher was incredibly proud of him, right? Because he got it, he understood it. He was impassioned by a teacher. And I mentioned teacher because there's a number of surveys, but particularly our NEEF survey, that over 90 years, 93 or 96% of students get their environmental information from their teachers. We have to empower teachers, educators in general, with the information they need, current science-based information they need to deliver this understanding. And it's very interesting because environmental education doesn't sit in science and mathematics. Environmental education sits in the PE schoolyard. It sits in the language arts classroom. It sits in the civic history classroom. It is one of those contents that just go cross curriculum. And it's so easy to do. We write a lesson in 40 minutes and it'll hit every single topic of education, just using the Everglades. And so I just say that and knowing that our programs are expanding, our next generation is incredibly involved in doing some real good work at identifying our issues and developing new solutions for the future.
Annmargareth, so you work for the 6th largest school district in the entire country. What sort of innovation and creativity have you seen in terms of local place-based environmental education here?
There is so much. I honestly hesitate to call out one.
Sure.
Just because you don't want somebody to think, oh, that's it, that's all they're doing. And it's just an example. When you were talking about the power that students have, a couple of years ago, there's a group of students who created the mermaids, and they were just so upset about straws, about plastic straws. They saw the video that everyone sees about the turtle and the effects of plastic straws on the environment. And they just got together, this small group of young women and men, and said, let's do something at our school. Let's try not to have straws here. And then it became, let's put it on social media. Let's make it a beach cleanup. Let's just get people to come out. It grew. These young people have changed the way people looked at straws. And you don't think that's a big thing, but it is. In the school district right now, we have an initiative called the Tea Garden. It's a food forest. It's about using technology-empowered agriculture. Because there's another area where people don't realize there are food deserts in our community. And it's because of the environment. There's nowhere to grow food. That's not easy to access food. So let's teach students what that is and help them figure out how to solve it. Students decide what to plant in their gardens. Students are deciding the kind of foods that they want to eat. The amount of things that the kids can do is amazing, but you have to give them a passion. And what I love about what we are doing is that a lot of the projects that are going on, for example, we have a partnership with SciStarter, which does citizen science projects. And so we have a portal. One of our teachers said, you know what? I'm studying ecosystem in my classroom. I'm going to use this connection with our group, with our partner, and my kids are going to do a citizen science project on counting squirrels. Now, when I sold it to my husband, he was like, so they went outside and counted how many squirrels? I was like, yeah. What's the point? Well, they upload that data to a national scientist who is doing this huge study about squirrels. And now they know that their local environment counting is impacting a huge national science research project. But they're also learning about their environment because now they're understanding what attracts a squirrel. What kind of natural organisms have to be in place so that the squirrel could survive? How do we prevent them from being hurt? How do we impact their environment? So all of these things are just because these third graders went and counted squirrels, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But what I do love about the partnerships, and Joe said it, and I'm going to reiterate, is that these opportunities that are existing because we have our partnerships, because we have these people working with us, are providing equity to our students. Equitable access is everything, because it doesn't matter if the school is a Title I on the very highest amount of students who are needing assistance, or if it's a school that they have everything, they can bring in programs. Every student is having equitable access so that they can be empowered and that they can have a voice. They're choosing how their education is going to impact their future. We have, like I said, our climate project. We have PBLs going on. We're reimagining our middle schools because you know that children need to be passionate about something now. It's no longer book learning is sufficient for them to want to get the grade. They need to see a connection. Why am I learning about perimeter and area? Well, if you had to design a development that was accessible for someone who was differently abled, as well as created a natural environment that can help sustain the plants and the animals that live here, what area of land do you need with the perimeter fencing that goes around it? Let's tie it into things that they know. Now they're doing it. And that's what reimagining is doing. Reimagining middle grades is the focus of taking these STEM ideas, working with our partners and creating lessons that students are empowered with voice and choice, so that they can be able to do what we need them to do in the future, which is save us all from what we've done in the past. So that is, I think, the big takeaway from all the different projects we have going on in the district.
Spoken like a true educator. Thank you for that. I'd like to bring back another question to you, Joe, here in the museum. So obviously you have a lot of children who come and visit, but those children come with their families and friends. Can you talk a little bit about how someone who is out of school could still learn and still make an impact in their community, even if they're only just learning about their ecosystem like the Everglades?
We see pre-pandemic, we were seeing about 425,000 visitors a year. Yes, a lot of those are children, but they come with adults or they come on a field trip with their teachers. It has been so busy. We're about 5% this year ahead of our 2019 attendance numbers. Wow. So people are back in force. And when we look at designing exhibits, and spoiler, we are working on a resiliency and environmental sustainability exhibit. When we look at designing exhibits, designing an exhibit or designing a museum experience is almost like creating a Pixar movie. A Pixar movie is a lot of fun for children and they'll watch it 20 times, but it's got to have something that appeals to the adults as well, so that they'll leave it on in the background. And so when we develop exhibits, there's layers of learning that happen within each exhibit. So if we're developing an exhibit about resiliency, and one of the things that we're doing as part of that exhibit is we planted our food forest. So we've planted a food forest back in the museum science park that has the cutest little baby mangoes growing on it already. And this is a forest that's only 6 months old. We want to have programming out there that appeals to adults, that appeals to children, because as Annmargareth said, we literally live blocks away from neighborhoods where they are in a food forest. There may not be a grocery store that's readily available, but you can literally put a plant in the ground in South Florida and have it flourish into a tree quickly. We want parents to come in and see this, see their kids engaging, and go home and act on it. So whether it's in our exhibits, in our IMAX, or in our programs, we're always thinking about what is the adult layering that goes into the experience.
Definitely. Jen, can you tell us a little bit more about the impact this has on families and communities, Everglades education in particular, and how we're trying to move the needle with our education program and of course, working with our partners?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We look at our schools as environmental hubs, if you will. I'm right. This is where our teachers and students and families, this is the safe place where we learn, where we gather, right, where we communicate. So using our schools as an environmental hub really is a way of moving that information to our communities. And so what you see is you see our students and our teachers, their family nights, their STEM nights, right? You always have a piece now in those STEM and family nights where you're talking about environment, where you're talking about not just the challenges, but also the really cool things that are in our environment. And then that sparks families and community members to start visiting our environment, right? Making it important in their life and making sure that, the kids are nagging them. Can we go to the park? Can we go to the Everglades? Can we go see this? Okay, so it starts to get these conversations rolling in our homes and in our communities. The Everglades Foundation, spearheaded by Bianca Cassouto and Kim Gooch, we now have Families for Everglades. And so about every 30 to 60 days, we have a night where we invite families and community members into our Zoom world, right? And we talk about what are these dinner time table talks that we can talk about the environment. It's related to the Everglades, but environmental education in general. And so really getting families interested in getting out there. I learned very quickly that there's still this little fear of the Everglades. Oh, this mosquito-ridden alligator place, right? But you learn very quickly when you get out there that it is one of the most beautiful places I have been to. And I've traveled extensively. The quiet, the beauty of what's in the water and under the water really comes out. I mean, we had a student from Orlando who had never been to the Everglades, and they had been an Everglades champion. And so we said, well, let's get them out there. Let's get them out into the Everglades. And this one kid refused to get on the bus. I can't. I'm scared. I don't want to do this swamp walk. I just don't want to be out there in a tent for 3 days. I'm not interested in this. His mom bribed him. I think it was Elf on the Shelf, if I remember correctly, something. We bribed him, got him on the bus, and I have him videotaped coming out of a knee-high, waist-deep swamp walk, right? And I asked him, so how are you feeling? What does this feel like? He goes, it's the best day of my life, right? So what we have to do is get past this uncomfortable feeling. Our environment is right in our backyard. It is really one of the most beautiful places in the world, right? We have 4 national parks. We have all this stuff happening. And so get them out there, even if it's just a walk on Anhinga Trail for the first time, even if it's just a walk through the park, identifying species with your plant app or animal app, start getting out there.
Thank you for painting that picture. I think that more and more Floridians need to get out there to enjoy the ecosystem, whether you're in K-12 school, at any age. The Everglades is ours to love and to protect. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and if any parents are worried about, what about my 3rd grader, 4th grader, 5th grader going out into the swamp? Isn't an alligator or a snake going to sneak up on them? Have you ever tried to sneak up on 20 screaming 3rd graders having the time of their life? There is not an alligator to be seen. Those things are smart animals and head for the shores. Lance and I had the opportunity to go on a swamp walk with some of our eco explorers. And the first time they're looking at this, the sawgrass and the mud and the water and just, I'm not getting in that. That could be anything. They come out and the first thing they say is, can we do that again? Can we do that again? And these are high schoolers. And one of the things with high schoolers is encouraging them to reconnect with that sense of discovery and play. And I think environmental ed really brings that. It allows them to be playful again. And that's a big part of being a child. And even in high school, you're still a child. And so just reconnecting with that sense of play and wonder, and that's what we try and do each and every day at the museum, is connect people to inspiring science, get them excited, get their brains just charging. And if that's what it takes to make it happen, it's one of the best ways you possibly ever could.
Go ahead.
I just want to throw in there, for those of you who are not ready to go out into the Everglades and do a swamp walk, I really want to make sure to point out, check out your local Broward County parks. For example, Long Key Nature Center does a night hike once a month. And there's owls on the trail. And as you go walking, you can see their eyes lit up on this dark trail and you can hear them hooting. And they even have an app so that it calls out so that the owl will respond. It is 1 hour on a trail. You see night animals. So if you're a little scared about going into the Everglades just yet and want to start baby steps, check out your local parks for some environmentally minded tours and events and programs that are super exciting. And like you said, spark that wonder, spark that what if in that child. And our Broward parks are doing STEM in the park, where they're taking that STEM technology and having the students create projects about what if you want to do the night hike, but you were differently abled. How can we arrange this? What would need to be part of the trail? You know, all these ideas that kids have, they're so amazing. So check out your Broward parks too, to get like the entry level, the on-ramp to environmental exploration.
Definitely. Thank you all for providing these real world examples of people of any age and different abilities and how they can get more involved with environmental education. We are going to pivot now to see if there are any audience questions for those of you who are participating today in person as well as virtually. Please make sure to put your questions in the chat and they will be fed my way. Does anyone in person here have a question that they'd like to ask our panel? Yes, in the back.
So this one goes to all three. What infrastructure?
So the question is, what infrastructure have your programs developed to increase accessibility to programs in the future for our virtual members who may have not heard that? Floor is open.
So I'll just talk about, educational infrastructure, if you will, right? And for us, that's really building capacity through our partners. It's why we're here today. That is the best way for environmental education to build infrastructure, is working together. And working together in partnerships look very, very different, right? Some of them are co-writing grants. Some of them are working with us on developing new field trips and opportunities to get out into the environment. Some are there giving us a space to train teachers. I mean, partnerships and infrastructure within environmental education are broad range of opportunities for environmental educators and community members, organizations, companies, other nonprofits and foundations. And so we're working really hard at identifying what these partnerships look like and how do we build capacity through that as well.
Yeah. So here at the museum, our Hub for Resiliency Education is all about that. It's serving as the hub for everything that's happening in resiliency education in South Florida. It's providing a home to the Youth Climate Summit for the next 5 years. It's working with the Everglades Foundation to grow our Eco Explorers and grow our programming. It's working with local universities. Very often, you heard Annmargareth mention National Science Foundation. Very often, universities are required to have some kind of community outreach. They get a big grant, and rather than it just living on the campus, it has to live somewhere. As a museum, we're the perfect place to showcase that research. So we're working and talking with local universities about showcasing their work in resiliency education. And on the accessibility side, we have so many programs here at the museum that we already have that we're continuing to grow. One of the most powerful is called Museums for All, where we provide $2 admission anytime, no questions asked, simply by showing an EBT card, a SNAP benefits card. And this is something that we raise funds for, and our philanthropists and community partners, corporate partners help support, so that every child in our community and every family has access to what we're doing at the museum without financial burden to them. And that's something that's ingrained in who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Amazing.
So everything they just said, we work finding our partners who are going to help us provide the information. We provide training locations, access to the teachers, access to the students. The other thing that we do is we look at, as a district, what is our environmental policy? And we are currently working to update our environmental policy as a team of people from every department, because we want to make sure that it's current, that it meets not only the state guidelines for an environmental policy, but our own personal local needs, guidelines. So talking about making sure that everyone is being educated, from the custodian to the teacher to the district representative or the district person. Everybody has a stake in our environment. And so they all need to have resources, training, and then be able to spread the same message. The other thing that we're doing as a district is we create programs all the time. We create trainings, we make the partnerships, but we need to identify, and we are identifying the people within our district. As the 6th largest district in the nation, it's not like I can just pick up a phone, talk to one person, and that person goes, yeah, sure, I'll start doing that on Monday. There is a lot of people in the way. So we need to identify them. Who are going to be our best resources to help us spread this? More of a grassroots, right? You get someone at every department to buy in, their infrastructure will improve. The understanding of environmental policy, the understanding of environmental needs will improve. And that's what we're doing. We're working with every department to make sure that the message is consistent, that it is clear, and that it is being shared.
I'm going to piggyback off that for 1 second, just to make sure we get it in. Diversity, equity, inclusion is incredibly important.
Yes.
And environmental education is doing some really great work at minimizing barriers, making sure everybody's included and that access is available to all. Florida State Parks Foundation is doing some really great work at making sure all parks are accessible to everyone and all those opportunities are accessible to everyone too. And I'll mention that we have an incredibly diverse state. And so Everglades Foundation works incredibly hard and makes sure that everything that we do is free. Everything, teacher training, curriculum, resources, field trips, that is K through 12 for our entire state. Right. And so that is incredibly important because that gets us and gets the resources to schools and communities that really need it. In addition, we know that home language is different throughout our state. We go from Russian to Haitian Creole to Spanish. And so particularly in our family stuff, we're translating all of our work, but also in our education program, we are translating into home languages as well to make sure that there are multi-language opportunities within our entire curriculum. And so that increases our capacity as well.
And I'll take the moment to throw out the other thing that we do within our district, and because of the support of our nonprofits and the things that they're able to offer us, is we have what we have called the P3 Eco Challenge, where schools who are doing things to improve the environment, taking the field trips, studying the lessons, who have custodians who have worked very hard to make their products environmentally sound, to make sure that their practices are environmentally sound, teachers who are taking the extra effort, and students who are doing their part to improve environmental understanding knowledge. We have them send applications, they fill out the information, and they're awarded prizes in May. So it's another way, money, let's talk, money talks in a lot of ways, right? So this is an opportunity to reward and recognize all those people in our district who are doing the best that they can to improve resiliency and understanding of the environment and being equitable. So if you are a teacher listening, P3 applications are still open and have been extended to April 18th. Please apply, reach out to me, and I will help you, because this is definitely something that you guys have worked so hard to do and should be recognized and rewarded for.
There are so many opportunities out there, right? This panel has already shared so many opportunities, learning experiences, questions to frame at home in the community on how to create solutions and lifelong experiences that really can build that generation of Everglades and environmental stewards, not everywhere in the world, but especially here in Florida, where we have a very unique and diverse Everglades ecosystem. Yes, go ahead. What's your question?
I'm getting county and right now I'm sure between Alachua and Miami. I'm blown away by the Broward down to the south.
So the question is, what kind of outreach do we have basically throughout the entire state, but central down to South Florida? Jen, do you mind to?
Yeah, of course. And Bianca's actually the best person to answer this question because she runs all the programs as a program manager. But yes, this is just an example. of the great work that is happening in a specific county, right? But Miami-Dade, we work very closely with their school district, who happens to have amazing school district personnel as well. We work closely, and it's great to see you in the audience. Yvette Connor would be very proud that you are here with the National Park Service. And so, yes, this is happening in many counties: Collier County, Orlando, Osceola, Sarasota. So yeah, so Everglades Foundation, we have somebody in Palm Beach, Boca, Miami-Dade, Southwest Florida, and north of the lake. And so we service all of these counties, and we work these partnerships in a similar way. And our school districts are incredibly invested in the work that we do and help support us throughout the counties. Mhm.
And of course, the best way is you can always get involved in Broward County. We're always looking for volunteers. So I'm sure Lance would love to have you on the environmental sustainability team.
And I can speak to Alachua County because I have family there. So there's lots of programs already that exist in Alachua County, but the thing is that they're not as vocal as we are. So it might be a matter of reaching out to an individual school in your area. The Girls Place, for example, has an after-school program for young ladies from elementary through high school ages. They're always interested in more environmental programming. I can give you a name offline later if you'd like to reach out. And those programs are always thirsty for that kind of knowledge, that kind of information, the things that we've been talking about. So I know they would reach out to us, but sometimes reaching out to them and saying, what do you have? What do you need? Even if your knowledge is, I plant a garden in my backyard every spring, take that knowledge to one of the schools and say, this is what I do. Could you use my services, or can I help a teacher who's interested? It would be a great way to start spreading that message. And like I said, it's always grassroots and environment. You have one person pass it to the next and to the next. So I encourage anyone who's listening, especially online, reach out to your schools, to your after school programs, and offer them some of your knowledge.
Yeah, you have a lot of knowledge to share. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can serve on any of our committees and boards and volunteer. We'll take you in a heartbeat. I will mention, and many may not know or understand the environmental layout, right, of the land. There's a national organization. There's a Southeastern organization. So you have NAAE, you have SIA, and then you have a state organization called LEAF, League for Environmental Educators of Florida. I just happen to sit as the president on the LEAF board, but it is comprised of a number of environmental organizations and people that are incredibly passionate about our environment. And through that organization, we build incredible capacity throughout our state for environmental education. And there's a number of universities on that board as well. And so I would encourage you to look out for that too, in terms of connecting and building resource connections.
Thank you for your audience questions. We do appreciate it. We're going to take a few moments to wrap up. Each of you have the mic for a minute. If you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us and how to stay connected with your organization as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Firstly, thank you to the Everglades Foundation for their incredible partnership, for coming here today and for putting this on, and to Broward County Public Schools. Museums, community partners really exist to support what's happening in the school district. We're all part of a community-wide learning ecosystem. It's no longer possible, as Annmargareth said, for the schools to do all of the education that these students need to prepare for life. So museums, nonprofits, community partners all have to play a role in building this community-wide learning ecosystem. So wherever a child is on their pathway to becoming part of the workforce, there's support, there's scaffolding, they're nurtured and they're encouraged. So we're happy and honored and thrilled to play a part of this. Certainly get more information about what the museum is doing at mods.org. But again, thank you to the Everglades Foundation and to Jen especially for your partnership and friendship. Thank you.
It's definitely a friendship, right? These partnerships end up to be lifelong friendships, and that's pretty awesome because it really grows our opportunity to educate people within our state. I would just say thank you again. This is just an example of some incredible work happening within Broward County, right? And to say that it's just really easy to work together. I mean, from writing grants to supporting each other to training together, it is just a beautiful relationship that really, really inspires teachers and students. So the good work that we do up here trickles down to so many other people. And I'll just say, take the first step, right? So if you're not engaging in environment or the natural world or, Everglades Literacy Now, take the first step. At evergladesliteracy.org, you will find so many things. Some a simple lesson to a field trip experience, to just something to read or 360 video. There's so many ways just to start taking the first step. And so I would encourage you to do that. And we have an incredible team of educators that are here to help. And I look forward to many, many years of building these partnerships and growing our infrastructure for environmental education together.
Ditto and ditto.
Yeah.
So if you think about how big our district is, every department has something related to the environment, somehow that they can offer information or training. So for us, browardschools.com is our website, and you can go under departments and find a department you're interested in asking questions to, and they will reach back out to you. To locate us, you can email us at any time at browardstem@browardschools.com. That is, if you have any questions or need direction, we'd be more than happy to help guide you in whatever step you want. Definitely, if you have those personal skills that you'd like to share with our teachers, we will be more than happy to act as a liaison to get you into the classroom or the school that best meets your skill needs and the time you want to share. The other thing I want to invite, because both of our partners up here on stage are part of it, we have a local STEM ecosystem called BASE, Broward Area STEM Ecosystem. And our website is base.org, and we're in the process of updating and making our website. But what it is a collaborative community of those people in our local environment who are STEM minded and related. Everything from Code Ninjas that does programming with students as a business out of school time, our aftercare programs such as Boys and Girls Club, United Way, our members, and then our different school districts, and then our partners, the Museum of Discovery and Science, Everglades Literacy. All of these groups, we meet once a quarter, and we just talk about the things that we're doing to support STEM, especially environmental in the area, and then what we need to still do to make sure that every student has access, every family has information, and they can all continue to grow in their understanding and knowledge. You are welcome to become part of our BASE ecosystem. So if you are interested, again, browardstem@browardschools.com, reach out. We will add you to our next meeting, which I believe will be June 2nd at IKEA, maybe. So we'll add you to our next event, and we will be happy to have you join us and help you determine what your path is with environmental education.
Thank you all so much. You've all provided us with a wealth of information today. Our audience definitely consists of native Floridians, newcomers, people who just live here partially out of the year. Either way, we're all in this ecosystem, and we truly believe that it takes all of us to help protect and love the ecosystem itself. So thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and your thoughts today. Thank you to our audience attending in person and virtually. I'd like to wrap up the John Marshall Everglades Symposium by thanking our panelists once again. Thank you to the Museum of Discovery and Science for hosting this session, and to our other partners for hosting similar sessions across the state. Your work is what helps us advance this momentum that we have with educating Floridians about Everglades restoration, Everglades literacy, Everglades education, and how when we all work together, we can make a greater impact to help protect this beautiful ecosystem that is our home. So thank you again, and I'll end by saying Happy Everglades Day.